Because of the weather recently, I haven't really been able to get out to the course all that much, so I've been doing a lot of field work and working on getting my distance up, which has been very successful. However, for throwing big distance shots, like I talked about in my last video, you kind of want to approach the tee pad from an angle. So if I were to try and throw a big tee shot from this tee pad, I might start over here and come across the tee pad, and then I could even start way over to the side. Come across the tee pad, so I can get that step across and get a big reach back and pull through. Now, that's really good for big distance shots, but if you're trying to throw on a shot like this is 330 feet, you gotta miss the tree on the left, miss the tree on the right, miss that last tree and the fence, and then get to the basket. I mean, it's not a huge shot, but it's not super easy to make. And if you're trying to throw that big distance run-up line, it's gonna be really hard to get that kind of hyzer flip that you need. You got to flip up and have that late turn to get to the basket. So I want to talk a little bit about when stepping up to the tee pad, how you want to think about approaching it with your X step and what angle you want to come at when throwing the disc. So I have a beat up T-Bird and an Undertaker, which are two pretty flippy discs. I'm going to attempt to throw a hyzer flip. For the first one, I'm going to start on the right side of the tee pad and come across like I would for a big shot. And in the second one, I'm just going to go straight from the back of the tee pad. I want to show how this affects the throw quite a bit. So I'm going to start off with the T-Bird coming from the right. Now you can see how I kind of released that on a little bit too much hyzer. It didn't really turn over. You know, I think a big reason for that was I was compensating for the angle that I was coming at, so I was putting on too much hyzer. Now I'm going to try the same thing, but I'm going to go straight from the back of the tee pad and just try to hit a hyzer flip. Look at that. I was able to put it on just enough hyzer, get a lot of power on it. It turned up, turned over, got up to circle one, and now I have a putt. And that all came from, I literally threw the disc. In my head, I was thinking, throw it with some hyzer, try and hyzer flip it. I tried to throw that first one good. But it's because of the angle that I came at the tee pad that it affected how I'm going to throw. So my rule of thumb for approaching the tee pad and how you want to throw it is, for maybe a flat to slightly hyzer shot, you want to come from straight on. So if you're throwing a hyzer flip, you don't want to come from the right. You want to come from at least the middle or the left. And this is for a right hand backhand. The reason for that is when I take my step, I'm going to step straight out like this, and my reach back is going to have to be right here. It'll naturally want to come through with some hyzer. Now, if I come from the right and step like this, now my reach back can be further this way, and when I pull through, it's naturally going to want to be more flat. So the reason I messed up that first shot was because when I was pulling through, I was trying to compensate for the fact that it was going more flat, and I was trying to like force the hyzer, and I ended up forcing way too much hyzer. And that's because I was coming with this big reach back from here and pulling through like this. If I have this right stance right here where it's better to do a hyzer, it's way easier for me to pull through on that hyzer because it's a lot more natural of an angle. And then if you want to take it to the other extreme, if I start from over here and step up like this, now a hyzer, it's almost like a spike hyzer. So if you're trying to throw a big spike hyzer, this is the angle you want to come from. So let's go walk over to hole one, where we're actually going to be throwing a spike hyzer and see how it lines up perfectly for that. All right, so now we have a totally different shot shape. We're trying to throw a big hyzer over these trees, and we're coming from the back left of the tee pad up towards the front right corner of the tee pad and putting on a big hyzer. Now you can see how this approach to the tee pad and the angle I'm coming at is going to set up for a big spike hyzer. I know the shape of the shot lines up for a big spike hyzer, but the angle that we're coming at the tee pad is also important here. So I'm going to show you right here how when I come from the left and go across, opposite what I would do for an anhyzer, or a flat shot, is going to set up for a big spike hyzer. So you'll see when I step here, my body's going across this way, and I can pull up like this for that big hyzer release. It was a terrible throw, but still illustrated my point. I just basically pulled through whatever felt naturally, and it came out on a big hyzer. Now let's try and do the same thing, but let's just go straight at the tee pad and try to release on that hyzer. So pretty similar stability disc, another Halo Destroyer. We're just gonna go straight up the tee pad and try and get that big spike hyzer without coming across it like we just did. And that, I don't know if you could see that, but that ended up over on 2's fairway. And even though my first shot was bad, having the wrong run up made it even worse because I had to like swing my arm to try and get it to release on the hyzer, where it just makes it so much easier and opens up my body so much more for the right pull through if I come from the left side and go across. So you can see how just little changes in the angle that you approach the T-pad change how the disc is gonna wanna go on your pull through. If I had thrown that first one fine, starting from the left allows me to get within circle 1. Starting from the middle, it makes me end up over on 2's fairway because I have to adjust so much for this weird run-up I've done for myself. And it can be easy to forget. If you always come straight on the T-pad, you instantly make this hole way harder for yourself. But if you really think about it and come from the right angle, it's a lot easier to get that shot. Same thing with over on hole 2. I naturally, a lot of the time, start on the right side of the T-pad and come across. But because of that approach, it made it really hard for me to execute a hyzer flip because getting that hyzer was going against the position of my body because of my run-up. If I started from the middle, like I did on my second one, executing that hyzer flip and releasing on hyzer was a lot more natural, and I can get a lot more power without having to tweak my arm to release on that hyzer. So to summarize everything that I've said here so far, if you start from the middle of the T-pad and then just go straight up the middle, that's gonna line you up really good for a hyzer flip, a flat shot, just a pretty standard golf shot, but usually gonna be a little bit better for that slight hyzer release that most people are gonna be comfortable with on a stock shot. If you start on the right and go across to the left, so you have that staggered stance going across this way, that's gonna line up a lot better for a flat or anhyzer release. Really good for big distance shots. Also really good for rollers because you have to get your arm all the way over, and putting yourself here makes it way easier to pull over than if you're here, it's way more awkward. And if you start on the left and go across to the right, so your right foot is stepping to the right here, is gonna line you up really easy for big hyzers, big spike hyzers. I hope that was helpful. I know it seems pretty obvious, but this is really something that I have struggled with until I realized recently how much it matters. I would often, like I said, start from the right and come across a little bit, and it would make shots like hyzer flips way harder. And I'm executing hyzer flips that I would struggle with before so much easier by making one little change. It has pretty much erased a lot of the errors I would make on my release point for a lot of shots. So that's my tip for this week. Look out for a 2-time-a-week upload schedule coming up. I've been loving all of the feedback everyone's been giving me on my last video that blew up, and I'm hoping that the rest of my videos can continue to do so. I can grow this channel, grow the community, and keep making videos for you guys. So I'll see you next time. Peace.